Welcome back to another episode of NFL News on the Boomer Bust channel. I'm your host Terry, and today want to catch us up and talk about what's going on with our contenders as we get towards the end of the NFL season for 2023. Happy holidays. I know Christmas fell on a Monday, and not everybody celebrates Christmas, but so I think, or maybe it's me because I work in education, so I work on the semester and the breaks and all that. So for me, it's the holiday season for another 2 weeks. So I like to just say the holiday season. But no matter what you celebrate and all that, hopefully you had a time to reflect, to be with people that you care about, do the things you love, and all that good stuff. So we were gifted from the NFL a great little slate. We had a number of games happen over the holiday weekend, but I want to talk about some of the big games as we go into the playoffs. Again, I talked about not predicting necessarily, but looking at the race to the playoffs and discussing that. That's becoming a thing that I enjoy. And as far as the seeding, there's definitely some things to talk about, but that's not really what I want to talk about. I want to focus on the big games and talk about what happened. So let's start off with the Chiefs. Now, before I get into any of this, I will say, as I said before, I've been saying all year, it's not about, not even all year, but any time. I mean, ever since I've been coaching, it's not about what you do, it's how you do it. So people get wrapped up, especially now that we're tight in playoff race. We're super tight in the MVP race. People want to just talk about what happened. Oh, look at this score. Oh, look at this numbers. Like that's only going to tell you a small part of the story. Better fans, hopefully you listening, you know that. So, if we dive deeper into what's going on, number one for the Chiefs. So, up front, didn't watch this game, followed it, but didn't watch this game. Another thing that I'm big on, and I'll talk about it more later, that I've been coming big on this season is the game flow. And when I say game flow, pretty simple to understand and to read, but there's a lot of nuance in it. It's the possessions. It's possession by possession, what's going on. So possession, time of possession, first downs, that's always been a thing for me, but really get into the game flow. I do feel like once I look at a game flow or follow the game flow, I can pretty much understand what's happening in the game. So when you talk about the Chiefs, this is a team that I talked about a while ago in terms of my big concern with them as a contender that I thought was underrated was the offensive tackles. I said before, you go back and check the tape. You got Jawan Taylor, who was not known as a pass blocker coming out and wasn't a great pass blocker in Jacksonville. And then you got Donovan Smith, who was out of football for a little bit, came back and wasn't great with the Bucks. You had Tristan Wirfs and all this other stuff happening. It's obviously Tom Brady with his quick release and decision making that made it look better, but these aren't great tackles. And besides the penalties, you just really saw them struggling early on in the season. I said, I think that's going to come back to bite them. So, one thing watching the game flow for this game, I mean, Patrick was getting sacked all the time. Now, again, I would have to watch the actual tape to say because a lot of times it's coverage sacks, but still, I do think from the games that I've watched myself, the offensive line, and that's it's kind of a symptom of the whole Chiefs offense philosophy, which is Pat Mahomes is going to fix it. We don't need great receivers because Pat's going to make them look great. We don't need great blocking because Pat's going to make them look great. And obviously, we've seen every single quarterback. I haven't seen one quarterback that isn't immune to pressure. I haven't seen, one quarterback that can carry the team when constantly under pressure. So that 100% is a thing, and we saw Mahomes in the Super Bowl when he didn't have much protection. We saw all that. That's natural to the game. And so for me, that was one of the underrated things this year. Now, the defense has played better than a lot expected. And that's when you got to kind of really look at the game. I mean, the Raiders are not really doing a whole lot on offense, but it's the Chiefs' inability on off or on their offense and the turnovers and things like that that gives the Raiders a chance. And so for me, I think if I was to categorize it, I would say it's a bit of an overreaction. It's kind of two-faced because you do, like I said, have the people that I think been glossing over offensive line issues. But at the same time, I would have to say that it is a bit of an overreaction because this isn't like the defense broke down and the Raiders went crazy on them and just nothing was going right. This was absolutely an offensive collapse in any game. I mean, people call it cliche, coach talk, whatever you want to call it, but turnovers and the mistakes, they matter. And there'll be a theme actually throughout the discussion. So all of those things matter. They matter a lot heavily when it's a close game, and you might not thought the Chiefs would have been in a close game, but they were, and so those things kind of take precedence. So I look at it, I see that the Chiefs still are on the rise with the defense, and I think about the offense, and I do think the offensive line is an issue. Travis Kelce not being what he was is this, that's the issue. The receivers, that's the issue too. So I'm not going to say it's a complete overreaction because there are parts, and to me, again, the offensive line, the biggest part that people kind of missed out on. But then I would say it's a bit of an overreaction just because it wasn't a completely, blowout necessarily. I think the Chiefs still got some things that'll help, especially against AFC teams that are not complete. Then we bounce over to the Bills and Cowboys, and tight game. I think overall, I wouldn't say the Cowboys and their trouble on the road is blown out of proportion. I wouldn't say that, but they definitely from the beginning, like I said, they weren't what people were trying to portray them as far as defense especially, and really with Michael Parsons. And that's not to say he's not good, but Michael Parsons to me is more of a fireworks type of player. Like, I that's where he's at now. That's what he's in danger of becoming. We'll see, not this season, but next season if he can get better. But that's what I don't personally think you want to be that. I think of Myles Garrett, TJ Watt, Bosa, a lot of the top guys. They might not always put up a number in the game, but they're constantly getting pressure. And I think with Parsons, for me, I mean, and I don't follow the pressure stats because I don't trust them, but watching him, he's more of a fireworks guy where when he goes off, you see him. It's hard to miss, but it's very few and far between when you shooting off fireworks, and he kind of disappears after that, and especially in the run game. And you don't. I don't want a player like that. Some people will take it. To me, I think that's not the type of guy you want to rely on, but that's kind of what he's becoming. But either way, I mean, the Dolphins, we know with the quote unquote prolific offense, they're able to do certain things. And this is also, well, no, I watched some of this game. It's also a game I didn't watch, just to put that out there. But watching the game flow and everything and looking at it, I mean, I don't think the Cowboys are as in much trouble as some people say. My biggest thing is the run game. I just feel like it's hard to think that they are going to have a run game, even as when offensive line's healthy as good as they are, and as good as a running back may be able to look behind them. I still think Pollard, they made a mistake. They needed some type of switch up, and I don't think they have it. And I think there's so many guys they could have went after, but they kind of made a mistake there. So they lose the game, and the biggest thing is it makes it harder, especially with Philly pushing out the win. Makes it harder for you to get that 2 seed or division winner, and so you're pretty much going to have to be on the road. Now, the first round is going to be NFC South, so it might not be as big of a deal. We'll see, but even if you make it past that, because their playoff game is tough, then you got to stay on the road, and that to me is probably the biggest issue for Dallas. Because had they been able to win the division and stay home, I think it would have been a different playoffs. All right, so let's get to the big one: the 49ers versus the Ravens. We got our our channel troll. We got all types of people that defend Lamar Jackson and everything like that. And so I was waiting to just watch it. Like, some people, I mean, not some, a lot of people on the internet just call people haters because that's what they're going to do. They don't really have anything else to say. They just throw it out there. And so I get called Lamar hater all the time. Not at all hater, because I call out what it was. So I was really excited, and I was waiting to see him against the 49ers. Not only a legit defense, but a legit team. Let's see what will happen. Let me get a strong litmus test. Now, Lamar is someone that I've watched film, I've watched live. Like, I really feel like I had a good sample size, especially in the playoffs. And after watching this game, I gotta say I don't feel much different. Now, I will say overall this year I gained a little more respect for Lamar. And I say a little because I always respected the fact that he had this special ability, but that doesn't always win you games. So I watched this game, and my takeaway is I just don't understand why people treat the Ravens and Lamar so different. So we have Brock Purdy. You got a number of people. He came under scrutiny as far as being a quote unquote game manager and all these different things. And game manager is a term that I think obviously people have taken as a negative way, because you had Cam Newton come out and say something that he got really ripped for because of the game manager title. But I do think what he was saying might have had some validity, as he was naming some guys that he felt were pretty similar. So I think you definitely have to word and find the context to make it a better statement. But overall, I think what people look at, or at least what I call it, is rhythm quarterbacks. I call them rhythm quarterbacks more so than game managers. You have guys that are really effective when you're in a rhythm and you got the offense going in that same rhythm. They're doing the things they're good at, and they're in the rhythm and they're effective. Now, when they aren't in a rhythm and things have to be different, there's only a handful of guys that can still be pretty effective. And the first that comes to mind is like a Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. And what a lot of people in the scouting world call that is off schedule. So when you're not in the rhythm, you're not doing what the offense is meant to do, can you still make plays? That is when you get to off schedule quarterbacks. Now, make no mistake, Aaron Rodgers is the father of this movement right now. And not to say you didn't have gunslingers like a Brett Favre and other people back then, But Aaron Rodgers is what really solidified and made this style of play popular. So you have people that can be off schedule and then people that have to play in rhythm. Now, Mahomes showed us that what it looks like when you can get to a great level at both of those things. And you see the magic and like just the jaw dropping stuff he was able to do. People call him the best quarterback ever. And so I think because of that, that's where we sit at today, where people get lost because that's what they're chasing. They're chasing that quarterback that can be the best of both worlds. And so when I look at, again, Brock Purdy being persecuted because he has a good coach and good weapons, when I look at Dak being persecuted because he operates well when they're ahead as a front runner, not so much when they're behind. When I look at Kirk Cousins, a number of people, I'm like, how is Lamar not in this same category? Because the fact is, and again, I said before, it's not what you do, it's how you do it. So people can say, and I tell you, it's the difference between takeaways and giveaways. That's another thing. So Brock Purdy, they're driving the ball. Kyle Hamilton makes great play, take the ball away. They tip up his pass. Humphrey makes great play, take the ball away. And, tip pass again, take the ball away by Kyle Hamilton again. So, yes, he got interception, but I don't necessarily think those was giveaways. Some of them were takeaways. But for me, my thing is that doesn't negate the fact that they were moving the ball up and down the field on you. So people will do that. Like, oh, the defense got these turnovers, these takeaways, whatever. They're great. Offense suck. Not necessarily. It reminds me a lot of the Jets-Bills game, which I bring up a lot because the conversation was so crazy after that. I mean, in that game it was like, and the Jets been a good defense, but in that game, it's like, they're so elite. They have 4 turnovers. They won the game. Like, Josh Allen gave them the ball over and over. Those were giveaways. That's not indicative necessarily what they can do or what they will do. And so, kind of similar here tonight. It's just like the Ravens offense got walked, I believe, in their first scoring drive. They got walked down the field by the refs. And some of those penalties were deserved. Some, I don't know. But they got pretty much walked down the field. The offense wasn't doing anything. They scored because they got walked down the field. Then you start getting turnovers, short fields, quick touchdowns, all that stuff. But that, again, doesn't mean the offense was great. Like, I hear people saying Lamar is great. And look, I give Lamar the credit for being able to turn something into nothing. But let's just really think about it. Literally the same argument about Purdy. Well, if they're down, he can't do this. Or if this person's injured, you can't do this. Like, it could apply to Lamar. If Lamar got picked off 4 times, however it happened, his fault or other people's fault, or a good play by the defense. If he got picked off 4 times and the 49ers scored 4 times off those turnovers, do you really think Lamar's coming back to win that game? Like, in your heart of heart, all these Lamar big fans, are you really think they're coming back to win that game? So I watched this, and again, off schedule scrambles, yes. Causing conflict in the run game, yes. Making some plays, some magic, getting the ball downfield, yes. But drop back, throw the ball, accuracy is not there, and I don't get it. Like, I hear so much crap being talked about people that when I watch and I get like a time like this, a primetime game, and I get to sit and watch Lamar, I'm waiting to see this change that everybody's talking about. There's no change. The accuracy is still very sporadic. Reading the defense, very sporadic. I believe it was either interception or it might not have been interception, but it was the ball behind Zay Flowers, and that was a huge play. And it was just like the accuracy is not there. And so if you believe you don't have to win that way, cool, that's fine. That's not what I'm arguing, but I'm arguing when you talk about the foundational traits of a quarterback, Lamar lacks that. And I feel like he's very much like a lot of these other quarterbacks. Justin Fields, so many of them, you could throw them all in there. That they're rhythm quarterbacks. As I've said many times, when the Ravens can do what they want to do in their head, and you don't know what's about to happen, Lamar's great. Same thing when it comes to Brock Purdy and the 49ers. Yeah, they might run the ball. They're up 10. Yeah, they might play action. You don't know. Purdy got the upper hand. Same thing with the Bears. The Bears are up. You don't know what's about to happen from the offense. Well, it's probably going to be a run, but who's going to run it? We don't know. So these are all rhythm quarterbacks. And like I said, there's a handful that have that off schedule ability. And you have people like Josh Allen, who was pretty much all off schedule, very little rhythm. And then he brought his level up, and for a short time, he had them both equal. He played great. And then he still fluctuates now, but for the most part, he's mostly off schedule. Then you got guys like a Justin Fields, who is all elite off schedule, but bottom floor rhythm. You got Lamar, a guy who's been chipping slowly to get his rhythm up, but he has elite off schedule. You got guys like a Kirk Cousins, who has great rhythm, but no off schedule. And so that is what is going on. Is you got a Mahomes who showed you how amazing it could look, and everybody's chasing that. Even CJ Stroud. And I was a big fan of CJ Stroud. I'm not going to sit here and act like I knew it would look like the way it's looking now, because I had no clue. There was a new roster, a new coach. You didn't know what was going to be around them. The situation matters. But literally, his knock, probably the number two, even worse, was we don't know if he can do off schedule. And that's a fair thing, because there's a lot that happens with Ohio State quarterbacks. But still, we don't know if he can do off schedule. And not even one game against Georgia, but a handful of plays changed his entire draft trajectory, because people were like, oh, he made this play. We had no idea he could do that. We didn't know he could do off schedule. And so, like, one complete part of his evaluation was a zero change, and that changed how people looked at him, because that's how important it is. And today, and again, Aaron Rodgers is the father of that. He made that off schedule stuff popular, and I wouldn't say necessary, but it made it so coveted. And so that's really how I look at quarterbacks. And I look at Lamar, and I put him in that same group. This is a rhythm quarterback. Well, I wouldn't say a rhythm quarterback. Okay, well that's what analogy gets a little messed up. But I mean, he's a quarterback that's going to do well within the scheme of what he's doing. And that's no different than a Purdy and all these other guys. Now, he can do off schedule, whether it's, again, like I said, scrambling, causing conflict in the run, extending the play, making a play. But in terms of like the every down stuff, it's no different to me. So once you get in the playoffs, what I've said about Lamar hasn't changed. It's going to depend on the matchup. It's going to depend on the matchup until I see something that makes me feel different. What we've seen from the Ravens and a lot of teams like this, and 49ers to that extent, once you get down, let's just say it's a 10-point deficit in the playoffs, I would even say at home, less than or in the fourth quarter, it's not going to go well because now at that point you don't have the upper hand of what we know he's going to do. Let alone it be a 14-point deficit. So for me, I watched that game and I think there was definitely an overreaction to what happened because you watch it and you watch the game flow. You had the Ravens not doing a lot and the 49ers moving the ball. I wouldn't say it was with ease everything, but they were ripping the Ravens apart. But it came down to the turnovers and penalties. I mean, again, you call it cliche, but that's how football goes. And so I watched these flags. Tayshaun Gibson had two huge flags. Then you got Ward. I mean, that one didn't really matter, but they walked the Ravens down to the goal line so they're able to score. And then, of course, Brock Purdy, not only with the interception, but you were in the white zone, you should have been able to score. So you're losing points, but then also giving them an extra possession. And so that matters. But now the question is, and maybe it won't be a question this year. Everybody's been waiting for the year where the Ravens don't have to ask question. What happens if the defense doesn't get turnovers? What happens if the defense doesn't give you good field position? What happens if you're down? Can the Ravens and Lamar still do it? We have not seen them be able to do that yet. But yesterday, they played, I mean, it was the perfect game flow that you want as the Ravens. The 49ers would have loved it as the 49ers. If the 49ers have 4 turnovers and score now, I think the offense is a little more efficient. They probably would have scored 4 touchdowns, but still, short fields, all that stuff. I mean, that playing ahead, that's how the Ravens look good. So, am I completely? First of all, the idea they dominated them, I don't necessarily believe. There were some good plays made, but I think Purdy just pretty much killed the team. And so you go forward, and do I think that's going to be the case every time for both teams? No. But we'll see. We'll see. That's the cool thing about them being in 2 different conferences. We'll see what happens. So anyway, go down in the comment section. Let me know what you think. Share it around. Get conversation started. Thumbs up, subscribe, share it around, and thank you for listening.